Okay, guys. So happy, joy, joy. The Hawks clinched the playoff spot or playing spot, not a playoff spot because it's playing spot. See how happy I am? Okay. So now that we've gotten the fake and phony Tanitra out of the way because she is not pleased about talking about a playing round again, I
Back
will tell
back
you
to
what,
back, T. You better
back
respect
to
it.
back, back to back. Like we're putting this thing in the spin cycle 3 times.
Right.
But I will say this, Jarvis, in all truthfulness and all honesty, I really was excited to see certain aspects of how the game was played last night. First of all, for me, it wasn't a big deal that Detroit came back. That was my expectation. It is the weirdest thing, but the Detroit Pistons and the Charlotte Hornets play the Hawks hard. And Charlotte actually beats them most of the time, to be honest. Detroit, usually it's a split. This time, it actually was a season series that went primarily the Hawks' way. But I was more looking to see what individual outcomes were going to be in that game. And one of the ones that I was looking for gave me exactly what I pulled up for, and that was Jalen Johnson with an unbelievable 28 points, 14 rebounds, and 11 assists. First triple double of his career, but in absolutely amazing form. But then it makes you think, Travis, as this regular season winds down and we're looking at a Jalen Johnson who, if only he played 65 games, could be the most improved player in this league because he truly is. He now maybe makes the Hawks have to think about some things. I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now with players like him really stepping up and showing who they are. What is that performance? What does this season that Jalen's had mean for these Hawks moving forward?
Wow. It means that they have a young piece that can be part of a championship contending team. That's where I'm at with it because I really feel like Jalen has something about him. He has that it factor, right? And I think that when you see that you don't have multiple dominant ball handlers on the court, right? And this is let me go ahead and say this before anybody starts saying, "Oh, you're trying to trade Trae Young or Dejounte Murray." I'm not trying to trade either one of them. All I'm saying is when Jalen Johnson is allowed to spread his wings on the court about and utilize all the capabilities that he has as a basketball player that he has developed over these past a couple of years, like you see what his capabilities are. He was able to get his first triple double of his career, and that's only happened twice in this season. And both it was by one other person, Nikola Jokic, the back MVP, league MVP. So when you think about him being able to do things like that, and I think before that it was Draymond Green back in 2016. So yeah, this is kind of a big deal of what happened last night when you have a guy go out and have the type of game that he had just from when he getting the rebound and being able to push the ball up the floor and start the fast break. And you talking about a guy like that, a stretch four, had a triple double. He had 11 assists. That is
11
absolutely
assists, yeah.
crazy. That's crazy. Like you don't see guys like that be able to not only bring the ball up the floor and be able to distribute as well and lead the break. So those things to me says that the Hawks have found them a guy. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Travis Schlenk found a guy and left them a nice little nugget for them to be able to have a piece that can have them help them win a championship or be a contender for a championship going forward.
Yeah, and I think he's one of the few solidified pieces from the outside looking in on this Hawks roster, honestly.
Indeed.
And again, that's not to say Trae should get out of here and DeJounte should, all those things, whatever.
Right.
Jalen is solidified and he should be moving forward. And I feel like every time we see him on the floor, which hasn't been a lot this year because he's been battling injuries, he's been up and down, trying to get back on the floor. But when he's there, he's hard to look away from. And there's something for that. He's playing electric basketball and exciting basketball, and he's good, and he's a difference maker, and he gives you another option on defense. Defensively, he's very good. He's good in every aspect. And I think he continues to get better. And if you listen to Quinn Snyder early on when he was talking about specifically Jalen Johnson, he would sing his praises, but also say there's so much potential to be untapped here. Yeah. And look what's happening. I mean, every time we see him out here when he's healthy, this is a different player that you want to invest in. And I am full send, bring him on to be a part of something in the future in Atlanta.
And you have to, because this league is going to a point in a place where if you're a 4 and a 5, you have to be versatile. Jarvis, you called out the perfect name, Nikola Jokic, because he is the ultimate that shows, yes, I am dominant in the paint. I'm going to go out on the wing and defend. I'm going to go out on the wing and shoot the ball. And that's what you're looking for in 4s and 5s. And that to me, and I know Jarvis, you have a follow-up too. So I'm going to throw this to you, lob it to you, and do your follow-up and answer this one at the same time, because your feedback and insight, your thoughts on Jalen Johnson bring you to the question of what you're going to do with Clint Capella, because Clint Capella is more of your throwback in that 4 or 5 space. Onyeka Okongwu is more in your Jalen Johnson space. And that's kind of where the league is going. So as great as Clint Capella's last 15 games have been, which he's averaged a double-double for half of those games, and he looks like old CC, but he's not a stretch C, if you will. So like I said, I know you got to follow up, so go for it. But tell me your thoughts on what the Hawks' dilemma will be with him.
Yeah. So I want to speak to what Maria said about Quinn Snyder, right? Because I think that him seeing all of that untapped talent, right? I think that's kind of been a big reason why he's been able to develop into the player that he is as well, because
no question.
that him playing down in College Park, and there was a reason why he wanted him to go down there last year, and then for them to be able to just kind of like the developmental system down there, I think that kind of goes, and T, you're very familiar with, doing sideline for them down in College Park. I just, there's something going on down there, like just from a developmental standpoint, and you got to give those guys kudos as well. So, but I think that Quinn Snyder, head coach, being able to recognize what he has in a player, and I think that Quinn Snyder has talked to some different people who work with him in Utah. They like that's just what he does. He kind of understands that. But just as far as that dilemma goes, I think that the reason why it's a dilemma, because I think, when you look at that old school big, like I still feel like that's still room for that on current NBA rosters. But I just think that it can't be Capella in the form of a $20 million contract, right? Annually, So I think that him playing like this, I think a current championship contender might see some value in that, because he's going into his last year of his contract in the 24-25 season. I feel like there'll be some value there. But you got to have guys like Onyeka step up. And I think that, he drafted Muhammad Gay. I don't even know what he is. Bruno starts to develop a little bit. So is Clint Capella better than those guys that I just named right now? As far as Bruno and Muhammad Gay, absolutely. You can put them together and Clint's still better than those guys. So, but I think that in order for them to kind of move on, they got to have a firm plan, because I feel like Onyeka can be that starting 5 for you, but you have to have somebody kind of old school that's go out there and get a double-double for you on a nightly basis.
But I think that needs to be a backup center. I don't think that needs to be your starting center, because speaking of the way Quinn Snyder kind of does things, I think that his system doesn't fit for an old school center to be a starter. I think Clint has been able to shine a little bit is just finding ways to kind of fit in with that system these last few weeks. But to ask him to do that across like 82, well, he's not going to be there for you for 82 games. We'll say 65. But to ask him to do that for you for 60 or 65 games, it's just not his game. So like you said, I think that might be where the challenge is. But maybe if you go for that as a backup center, you do two things. You get somebody who can go in there and bang for you here and there without getting into foul trouble like Bruno often does. And on the same token, you could probably get that backup center at half the price. But one more thing before we wrap that I wanted to share as well, that you guys both sort of alluded to, and I thought, some symmetry here. We talk about what led to the exit of Arthur Smith, and that was choosing the wrong quarterback. Nate McMillan chose not to develop Jalen Johnson. He chose not to lean into that, because remember, Jalen was at College Park when he was here too, and he chose not to lean into that. Whereas, like you said, there's a developmental piece. Kobe Buffkin as well. Kobe Buffkin had a nice game last night too, and he's had a nice couple of games coming back too. So yeah, if they can lean into that developmental piece, I think that should educate and inform Landry Fields and company on what they should be focusing on at this draft and this offseason as well. But speaking of focus in on the good people, because that's what we're doing in Around the Metro.